Okay.
Welcome, Wargamers. My name is Doug with 2+ Stuff, and I want to do a little video that I think is kind of important for, especially for newer folks who are getting into the hobby, trying to figure out the lore, and understand how Games Workshop really sells their products. Earlier today, a video was posted by me called Soul Wars Death Ascendant, which is really just taking the things we know about the new Soul Wars saga, which is kind of like the ongoing campaign right now, and what we know from the core rulebook, and putting it into a video that's very accessible to people. Now, I haven't even launched that video yet as the time of this recording, but I know there's going to be comments that say things like, this is incorrect, it was actually clarified in another novel, and those kinds of things. What I'm going to do in this video is talk about how Games Workshop sells their products and their storylines, and so we can understand why one video might say another thing, why one book would say another, and kind of understand why it seems there are sometimes contradictions, but not actually. So to do this, we're going to talk about a series that I recently did called the Realmgate Wars. If you don't know, Realmgate Wars was a 5-part series I did, I think 2 weeks ago now, where I covered the massive campaign books that came out for Age of Sigmar during its opening year. This detailed the story of Sigmar reopening the Gates of Azir, trying to rebuild the Pantheon by getting Nagash and Alariel on his side. Nagash didn't work out, Alariel did, and all the cool things that happened there with him fighting off Archaon and all that stuff like that. So we're going to use that as an example today, and I'm going to head over to the Games Workshop site. This is the Balance of Power. This was the second one in the series. You can see the number 2 right there. And basically, to make my point, this campaign book featured a war on several fronts. It had a lot of characters brought in, had a lot of battle plans, missions, the grand story. This really is a 30,000 foot view of how the opening act of that war went on. Okay? What it's not is a detailed narrative that fleshes out characters and makes people seem more human, I guess. Doesn't add a lot of kind of the fluffy bits of story that really add character. And so it's just very almost dry storytelling. And when I did the videos, I kind of added in a little bit of those elements, kind of giving gravity to certain situations, a little bit of drama, just to kind of add some flair, if you will. But this is really a great book. You can see a lot of stuff in here, cool maps, that's a nasty piece of Skaven art, character bios, that kind of stuff, really cool things. Like I said, what is not is this book. This book is book 6, I believe it's 6, is it 5? Sorry, my camera's covering up the number where it was. Book 5, Wardens of the Everqueen, which by C.L. Warner, it's not my favorite novel, but what this is one of the stories in the main book. Let me scroll to get the cut back here. In this one was the Stormcast Eternals find Alariel. She reverts back to her little seed pod thing, and they come up with that plan of like, okay, we got to get Alariel to this position. And the campaign book kind of glosses over most of that story. It says it was a long journey, it took a long time to get there, they were being harassed by a certain Nurgle warlord named Torglug, but they made it there, here's a few battle plans to recreate some stuff that happened there, and you're good to go. What this book, going back here, is a massive drama novel about the harrowing events that were that journey. So Torglug is fleshed out as a character, so we care about him. And the struggles of the Stormcast Eternals are brought about. Their faith is tested in a real way, not just like, this is harder than I thought it was going to be, but in a fundamental way of, we're going to go make a god reborn in a different image by changing Alariel from being dour to being fighty. What does it mean to remake a god? All these kinds of very higher level thinking questions. So what I'm saying is this book, the Wardens of the Everqueen, fleshes out the narrative that we are presented here in the campaign book. Now, why do I bring this up? So we just launched a new story. I say we because Jess helped me with some of the audio. Launched a video about Soul Wars. Soul Wars is the new Realmgate Wars. It's the overarching storyline of the Mortal Realms. All the events are going to be interpreted through that lens, and that's how we're going to introduce new narratives and armies and how they relate to Nagash and Death and what Death is doing, how Nagash has screwed up the Mortal Realms in a fundamental fashion. It's the big picture. Just like this campaign book, The Balance of Power, is the big picture book. It's number 2 of a 5 series. Well, another book came out very recently called Soul Wars by Josh Reynolds. And Josh Reynolds, if you don't know, bump the back here, is my favorite author. Absolutely bar none. His character interactions are just the best. They're very memorable. Nagash, Undying King is my favorite Age of Sigmar book. I haven't finished Soul Wars quite yet. It's up there. But yeah, so my point being is I'm going to show the video today about Soul Wars Death Ascendant, which covers the grand story, just like the campaign book here, of what's generally happening in the Mortal Realms. And then as soon as I'm done with Soul Wars, I'm going to do a video on that specifically, showing the fleshed out, you know, the soul, heart and soul of the storyline afterwards. The reason I do this is simple, because a lot of people don't really care about death as a faction. It's true. It's a shame, because Night Haunter are super pretty, but simply not everyone's interested, but they want to keep up with current events. And so the first video that covers the campaign things, just like all the Realm Gate War videos that I did, cover the grand storyline to get people up to speed, but not going into massive amounts of depth, which is what the actual Soul Wars video is going to be like. Just to kind of give you an idea of the differences, so you read Chapter 1 of Soul Wars by Josh Reynolds, it's immediately dives into much more detail than the core rulebook. The core rulebook talks about, this is not spoilers, it's all out there, Nagash built the giant black pyramid, it was upside down, Skaven infiltrated, they got locked inside by accident, started to spin, and it broke down. And that's really all it tells you. It doesn't tell you a whole lot of detail. The first chapter of Soul Wars is like Nagash teleports inside the capstone of the pyramid. He's in there. He sees the Skaven infestation, tries to root it out, but they did just enough damage to mess everything up. And he gets this weird sense that this has happened before, because it did in the old world. Skaven messed up his plan back then too. And so like they're kind of doing callbacks and going into more depth. None of the dramatic and kind of thematic scenes of him being in the capstone, which shows you how big it is, none of that's in the core rulebook. It is, however, necessary just to show some people this is generally what's going on, this is how Nagash screwed everything up, this is how the Skaven screwed up Nagash's plan, and so forth. So that's just an example of like how they're saying the same thing, but they do it in different ways, depending on really what your level of interest is. If you want to keep up with current events, core book is all you need to know. It's a great summation of what's going on, just like the Realm Gate Wars were. Instead of reading 12 Black Library novels, you could just read 5 of the Realm Gate War books, walk away with a bunch of game aids, and have some fun. And there's a lot of complaints about this model. At least there were when the Realm Gate War books were coming out, simply because, for example, with Torglug, we were just talking about the balance of power thing. Torglug as a character, in the campaign books, they just said he was chasing them, and the Celestin Prime hit him so hard his soul came out, and then his soul got shot to his ear, and people were like, what? And at the end of the book, they showed Torglug being reforged, and it was cool, but it didn't go into a lot of depth. And so when you read other books about Torglug being reforged, you have Stormcast, you don't trust him quite fully because he was corrupted by chaos, and then it's like, well, if you don't trust him, then you don't trust the Celestin Prime, and like all these kind of like secondary questions that are like very intriguing and really challenge the character's perceptions of faith and duty and honor and all these things. Like a lot of great storytelling happened. People wanted that in the campaign book. They're like, oh, well, I feel like I'm missing something because I don't have this backstory. Well, they do that, like I said earlier, to meet people at all levels. If you just want to play the game and have some cool storylines and cool battle plans and some general overarching reasons on why these two forces are fighting, these books are fantastic. They do exactly that, and they have gorgeous art, like unparalleled stuff. If you want to engage with the Mortal Realms on a different level and really like flesh out characters, have motivations and those kinds of, I would say, higher level thinking, not higher level as in like it's better, but it is much more cerebral to say like, this Lord Relictor has been reforged this many times, and because I've read these books that go into more depth about character, here are the ways he's been affected by that reforging. You know what I mean? Like much more deeper character development, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it just depends on what you want. This model that they have for these books really is meant to cater to whatever you want. And so that's the exact kind of experience that I tried to deliver here, which is, you want to know the basics? Watch the Realm Gate War series, watch the Soul War video, you're good to go. You're all caught up. If you want to know, talk about the in-depth parts of lore and motivations and what makes factions cool, which is my favorite topic to talk about, stay tuned. We're going to dive into Josh Reynolds' Soul Wars here pretty soon. My wife drove away with it by accident because I was a doofus and left it in the car. But by the time you all see this video, I should be pretty much almost done with it. So I'm very excited, friends, for this video series coming up. I wanted to just do that because there are quite a few people that commented on the Realm Gate War videos trying to understand how these books line up. Because they're like, well, why would I buy the same book twice? And I get that. The thing is that these books are complementary. They're not copies. You can read the Realm Gate War series from Black Library, and you'll get a completely different viewpoint on all the players involved, their motivations, why these things are happening, why they're important. You'll care about characters in a way that you'll never get that same picture from the campaign books. But you will get, in exchange for that, cool missions, cool art, that kind of stuff. So it's a toss-up. They complement each other, but they don't mimic each other enough to where you're losing value. And so that is kind of the whole point of this video, to share that with you. If you have any questions you would like answered, I'm going to be doing a very special Why Are We Forging here pretty soon. Click the link down below, and I would love to engage with you guys there. Thank you all so much for watching, and happy wargaming.